Do you have any future plans to make changes that will accommodate people's varying needs and still retain the single desk?
Well, thanks for your question, George. Certainly, the Canadian Wheat Board is a very different organization from where it was back in the mid-90s, when the only marketing option you had when you delivered to the board was pooling. And I think one of the reasons behind that is when we went to an elected board of directors. That's what they were hearing directly from farmers, that farmers did want some options that gave them more flexibility, options that resembled what was available in the open market, and the wheat board responded with that. And today, I think farmers really have the best of both worlds. Pooling and the strength of the single desk and all that it brings, plus a vast array of pricing options which come very close to what's available in the open market. We keep refining these products, providing more flexibility, longer timelines, for you to take advantage of these programs. And I guess in the near term, we'll continue to do that. But long term, of course, there's some big issues out there, a lot of uncertainties that we're not aware of. For example, two programs that we have recently had to suspend. One is the wheat storage program, which was designed to save high-quality wheat for the Japanese market. Farther out, we're not sure where we're going to be August 1st, 2012, so that had to be suspended. Also, the Churchill storage program that keeps grain on the farm to put through that facility at Churchill. First ships usually don't get loaded at Churchill till the end of July. So August 1st, 2012, again, we're not sure where the Canadian Wheat Board is going to be positioned. So that's what we've done in that regard.
If I could just add to the point that Alan made, the Board of Directors have any plans to add any new programs. Actually, the programs get created because the farmers phone the directors, and I think of one where the railroads were, the capacity was quite available in the spring, and the rates were a little lower, and of course farmers are seeding and they don't really want to deliver grain, so the board had a program where if you were willing to sit on your grain, you'd get to haul more come spring. And they made it quite attractive in wheat, and then in durum they made it even more attractive. The program was set up in the summer, and lo and behold, that was the year that only half the durum got marketed, and the farmers who signed up for that program to wait till spring, they got to haul all of the durum, and everyone else got to haul half. And did my phone ever ring off the hook, because I'm in durum country? So when I got to that next board meeting, wondering how I could sway some of these guys, it was very easy, because all the directors had got phone calls. And I guess the point I'm making is, it's your board, and those changes got made because the farmers phoned their directors who were elected.
We will finish for questions and comments from those individuals that are now standing at the two microphones. And microphone one.
Doug Hollins from Leduc, Alberta. I'm first generation retiring farmer. Sorry I can't keep up with some of the old timers. My thanks to the Wheat Board for all the changes in the last 5 years. I don't know what I would do without it. My view on the open market is this, and I would direct this question to those in the room that are non-supporters of the Wheat Board, and maybe they can tell me where I'm wrong. If I look at the open market from Leduc area, I have now Viterra or Cargill to sell my grain to. Now, if I add that up, I've gone from single desk to two desks. Now, that's not really much of an open market in my book. So I deliver to either of those two, and if my financial background is half decent, they have to make a margin on that somewhere and have to make some bucks. So who is going to pay for that? I think it's me that's going to have to pay for that. pursue this, how I'm going to deliver this grain to these people. And I know they've got my interests at heart. Now, if you really believe that, there is some oceanfront property in Arizona for sale. So finally, I sold it to them, they made their profit, I'm a little lighter in my pocket, so that is what open market means to me. Now, there is another side to this. I can probably get my own producer card, maybe. Maybe I can sell on the internet as some young person from Saskatchewan said on the program. I can sell my wheat on the internet to China. So I'm saying, okay, producer card delivered to the port, and who does it go through? By Terra or Cargo. Oh, so they're in my pocket again. Now, if that load gets to China, and China says it's contaminated, now what happens? Whether it's contaminated or not. The grain commission's gone after the wheat port's gone. So there's no checks or balances. So my question to these people that are opposed to it, really, what's wrong with my thinking here? What am I not getting?
Can I respond to that? Want to respond, Jeff?
No,
Response?
I think Alan's going to respond.
We asked for one of the supporters to respond.
No, I'm not going to give it a big on the floor.
Don't take him. Just want to thank the questioner for your appreciative comments, and I think the rhetorical questions that you put out, the crowd has received them and answered them.
Thank you. Microphone 2.
There seems to be, my name is Jan Slomp and I'm from the Rindy area. There seems to be some misunderstanding of people of how exactly the board arrives at savings for farmers. But maybe the best person to ask is Bob or Mr. Woods. As he came on the board with the idea that the dual market would work and would be the best option to come on the board for. Could Mr. Woods explain why he is now a single best supporter?
Bill?
The information isn't quite correct. I have been a supporter of the open market. I was sort of anti-board, but you have to back up about 12 years. I guess you'd call it my transformation took place when I started to attempted with community members to buy a branch line. There were a couple of directors who arrived at the board as dual marketer and then changed after arriving. That was Ken Ritter and Rod Flaman. For the sake of explaining what happened to me was I lived in a community where it was pretty much anti-board, and so when that's what you're around, you never hear the other side of the story. There were quite a few board supporters in that community, but they were quite quiet because they kind of got pounced on in the coffee shop if they made their opinion. So they were kind of the silent majority, but I didn't realize that. When the railroads were deregulated, and they saw the chance to get rid of some branch lines, and there are lots of branch lines that are not potential short lines because the volume isn't there. But there are branch lines out there that did have the potential. But the railroads and grain companies worked in tandem with plans to get rid of all of the branch lines. And we experienced that firsthand because when we got together to buy our branch line that was advertised for sale, we met, there was about 6 of us, we met with the railroad, and he was pretty emphatic about telling us, sorry, arrangements have been made. Once the concrete elevators are built on the other line, your line will be closed, it will not be turned into a branch line. And so we thought we were kind of beat. And so the summer went by, and in the fall, we go to haul to the elevator, and went to the Pioneer elevator, and he said, I'm sorry, but I'm plugged, and I can't get a deal up in Kindersley. And that's what the farmers were being told at the other elevators. So there we were being manipulated, the grain was going to go off our line, and we weren't going to have any say. Someone had the brainwave, well then let's load producer cars. Someone else said, oh, if we load producer cars, we'll get accused of being inefficient and living in the past. So then someone else said, well, then let's make it a unit train or 100 producer cars, which means bringing a lot of augers to the track. And so I thought that was a great idea. So I had never loaded a producer car before, but I was running around trying to convince everybody to load a producer car. That's like the blind leading the blind. And we did accomplish convincing 100 farmers to load these cars. So 3 of us headed to Winnipeg with these applications. And just to kind of put it in perspective, we didn't really trust the wheat board because they'd be doing some favors for the railroad or grain companies, we thought. We weren't really too sure what the Grain Commission did. So to be on the safe side, rather than to meet with one and be afraid that he might talk to the next guy, we thought we'll meet with all 3 of them at the same time, Railroad, Wheat Board, and Grain Commission, so we could see the whites of their eyes. And of course, the Grain Commission said, well, he says, I have the Grain Act behind me that says I will authorize your car. I have that authority. But I won't send grain to port that doesn't have a market. That's up to the wheat board if they've got sale for that particular type of grain. And of course the wheat board said yes, we're going to be marketing #1 durum very shortly. We've got a sale. And of course the railroad said, sorry, the line's closed. Now what do? Well, the wheat board told us after the meeting that they gave us the name of a railroad lawyer, because we didn't know any railroad lawyers, and so we launched a complaint and the train did run. But what happened next was there was a rebirth of producer cars, and they rose from 3,000 cars per year up to 12,000 cars. And I know for a fact that that day, when we did that producer car train, if there was no wheat board, because the grain companies were trying to block this, that unit train of producer cars would not have happened. And I suspect that possibly the rebirth of producer cars may not have happened because communities around the prairie started to follow suit in that. And I'm not trying to save every branch line because some of them had to go, they were not viable. But that was the beginning of my thinking. You know, maybe this wheat board is a good thing. And I guess you could call that my Damascus moment, I guess. And so now I have begun to think, because I was really emotionally against the wheat board, kind of on the freedom, because that freedom issue. And I used to tell stories to these guys about what's the wheat board got in common with Walmart? The lowest price is the law. I mean, I used to tell those stories. And so I started phoning. I've now got to figure out if this wheat board maybe is good, I'm not sure. I had to learn a bit more about it. And that was the big joke. I was against this wheat board. I didn't have a clue what it was about or how it worked. I guess you could say I didn't even know that I didn't know. And I was actually debating this with one of the board supporters, an older gentleman, one day, and he was trying to answer my questions, and I was giving all this rhetoric that I'd learned from anti-board people, and he said to me, but you don't understand. And now he's calling me stupid. Well, I didn't know that I didn't know was my point. So when a person goes through something like this, when you've got an entrenched position, it's not easy to change your mind because you're going to have to admit that you were wrong. And my wife will attest that that's not easy for me to do. And the few times that I do say I'm wrong about something and she's right, she has the little expression she uses, how did that taste coming out of your mouth? Anyway, so I started phoning guys like Larry Hill, who was a chairman. I phoned Gord Clayton's boss, Ward Weisenthal. He's probably regretting that I got a hold of his phone number because I had lots of questions. So I was beginning a process of learning about the wheat board and trying to decide there's good things, and of course I had all these bad things. A lot of the stuff was misinformation. My support for the board was getting longer, and it was getting, so the only thing left was freedom. So I just decided to make a business decision instead of using my emotion, and I kind of made it with my brain, and so I became a supporter of the board.
Microphone 1, yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Closer to the microphone.